She punched a diplomat and got buried in the worst job on the station. But when the Galactic Council sends a war fleet to silence humanity forever, Jiho becomes Earth's last hope. A defector arrives Vexa, a Kelrath engineer carrying stolen override codes worth more than entire worlds. The codes that could break the Council's iron grip on the galaxy. They have one chance, one upload, one impossible run through zero gravity and enemy fire to reach the communications nexus. Now, they're trapped in the control room. 6 soldiers, 1 doorway, and 2 minutes until the upload completes. Vex's finger hovers over the button that will broadcast freedom to every human ship in the galaxy, or paint a target on both their backs forever. The Council will erase them. The soldiers raise their weapons. The countdown ticks. She pulls the trigger. The coffee had gone cold again, which meant Jiho had been staring at the same requisition form for at least 40 minutes. She rubbed her eyes and glanced at the recycled air filtration unit humming in the corner of the supply depot deck 7, subsection 12, the armpit of humanity's first deep space trading station. Nobody chose to work here. You got assigned here when you'd annoyed someone important, or, in Jiho's case, when you'd punched a delegate from the Vrexian Concordat for touching your junior officer without permission. Worth it. No doubt she was reaching for her cold coffee when the lights flickered. Then they went out completely. Emergency reds kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing everything in that horror movie glow that made her think of every space disaster documentary she'd ever watched. The station's intercom crackled. All personnel, this is Commander Yates. We have an unexpected diplomatic situation. Remain calm and stay at your posts. Jiho knew that tone. That was the "we're totally screwed, but I can't say it" tone. Her personal cum chirped. She tapped it, expecting her friend Minho from engineering to crack some joke about the Vrexians finally coming to arrest her. Instead, it was Captain Sora Kim, her old commanding officer from before the reassignment. "Park Jiho, I need you in docking bay 3. Now." "I'm on depot duty, ma'am." "Pretty sure if I leave, someone's gonna notice. They're shutting us down." "Jiho, the Galactic Council just issued an enforcement order. No more human expansion, no more trade routes, no more voice in sector disputes. They've got a Thaxran fleet outside ready to disable our communications array." Jiho felt her stomach drop. The Thaxrans didn't do half measures. If they were here, somebody on the Council really wanted Earth gone. "What do you need me for?" "Because you're the only person on this station who speaks functional Kelrath. And we've got a very scared Kelrath engineer who claims she can help us. Get here before they lock down the bays." Jiho was already moving. The corridors were chaos people running in both directions. Some toward their quarters, others toward the docking bays like rats fleeing a sinking ship. She ducked past a floating cargo container someone had abandoned and nearly collided with a Zethian merchant who chittered something angry in her direction. The whole station smelled like ozone and fear sweat. Bay 3 was quieter. Captain Kim stood near an old cargo hauler, the kind that barely passed safety inspections. Next to her was someone Jiho had never seen before at Kelrath, tall and angular with those distinctive crystalline ridge patterns running down her neck and forearms that shifted colors with her mood. Right now, they were pulsing a deep violet. Fear or stress, if Jiho remembered correctly. "This is Vexa," Kim said without preamble. She worked for the Council's technology division. She defected 2 hours ago. To Kelrath, Vexa turned those huge amber eyes on Jiho. Kelrath eyes always reminded her of a cat's, but bigger and with an unnerving ability to see wavelengths humans couldn't. "You are the one who struck Counselor Rex's son?" Not what Jiho expected. Yeah, that was me." For the first time, Vex's ridges shifted to a pale green. Amusement. "Good. He is, in your human terms, a complete bastard." Jiho decided she liked her already. Kim crossed her arms. Vexa says the council's been planning this for months. The enforcement order is just the beginning. They want us contained because we're expanding too fast and asking too many questions about council trade policies. Specifically, Vexa added, her accent thick but manageable, because your species discovered the halcyon roots. The halcyon roots. Jiho had heard rumors, ancient hyperspace lanes that could cut travel time between sectors by 70%. The council supposedly controlled all access to them, charged exorbitant fees. If humans had found a way around that monopoly, yeah, that'd piss them off, Jiho said. They will not merely silence you, Vexa continued. They will erase your navigation data, cripple your ships, and ensure no other species dares trade with you. I have seen the implementation protocols. It is thorough. Kim's jaw tightened. We've got maybe 6 hours before the Thaxran fleet moves in. Command's trying to evacuate civilians, but we don't have enough ships. Most of our fleet's scattered across 3 sectors. So why am I here? Vexa stepped forward, and Jiho noticed she was holding a data crystal expensive tech, the kind that stored information at a quantum level. Because I have the Council's override codes for the Halcyon Gates. With them, your species can access the routes freely. You can break their monopoly. And you brought this to us because the ridges flared violet again. Because the Council is corrupt. Because they have silenced 17 species before yours. Because I am tired of watching them strangle entire civilizations for profit. She paused, and something vulnerable crossed her face. And because when I accessed your planet's cultural database to understand humanity better, I found your music. And your poetry. And your completely insane tendency to send messages of peace on spacecraft flung into the void, hoping someone might find them. Her voice dropped. The Council does not do such things. They do not hope. They do not dream. They only control. Jiho looked at Kim. Kim looked back. So what's the play? Kim smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We get those codes out. We make so many copies the Council can't suppress them all. We give them to every ship, every station, every human settlement between here and the Outer Rim. And then we open every single Halcyon Gate at once and invite the entire galaxy to use them. That's going to start a war. They already started it, Kim said. We're just answering. The next 3 hours were a blur. Jiho found herself on the cargo hauler, which Vexa had apparently stolen from her former employers heading toward the station's communications nexus with a thumb drive, worth more than the entire station's annual budget. Vexa piloted with the kind of manic confidence that suggested she'd done stupid things in spacecraft before and survived. You know they're gonna try to kill us, right? Jiho said, gripping the co-pilot's chair as Vexa executed a completely unnecessary barrel roll around a maintenance drone. I am aware. One have been on their execution list since I accessed the override codes. Vex's ridges flickered through several colors Jiho couldn't identify. I am, in your terms, in deep shit. Despite everything, Jiho laughed. Your English is pretty good. I have been studying human languages for 2 orbital cycles. Your species has 17 words for broken and 43 for love. It is beautifully inefficient. Yeah, we're a mess. Vexa glanced at her, and those amber eyes held something Jiho couldn't quite name. A beautiful mess. The Nexus was supposed to be lightly guarded. Most security had been pulled to the bays to manage evacuation. Of course, that's when Jiho spotted the 3 Rexian soldiers waiting near the access corridor. Shit, I concur with your assessment. They couldn't go back. The Thaxran fleet had started its approach. And according to the hauler sensors, they had maybe 90 minutes before the station's communications went dark. Jiho made a decision that would either be brilliant or get them both killed. Can you override the dock's artificial gravity? Vex's ridges went bright orange. Excitement or terror? Jiho wasn't sure. Yes, but we would also lose gravity. That's the idea. 30 seconds later, Jiho was floating through the access corridor with a wrench in one hand and the data crystal secured in her jacket's inner pocket, trying not to vomit from the disorientation. Zero-G training had been years ago, and her body remembered it about as well as she remembered high school trigonometry. Asterisk. The Vrexians were tumbling, disoriented. Their species didn't do well without gravity, something about their inner ear structure. Jiho pushed off a wall, swung the wrench at the lead soldier's helmet. She wasn't trying to kill anyone, just disorient, and grabbed his weapon as she sailed past. She'd never fired a Vrexian pulse rifle before, but it had a trigger and a barrel, so she pointed it at the access panel and squeezed. The door blew open in a shower of sparks. Gravity in 5 seconds. Vex's voice crackled through the Jiho grabbed the door frame just as weight returned. She hit the floor hard, rolled, and came up running. Behind her, the Vrexians were recovering. The Nexus control room was empty. Someone had evacuated the techs. Good. Fewer witnesses. Jiho jammed the data crystal into the main console while Vexa worked on the interface, her long fingers moving faster than Jiho could follow. "This will take 3 minutes to upload," Vexa said. "The moment I begin, every council ship in range will know our position." "Do it." Vexa hesitated, her hand over the console. "If we succeed, I can never return to my homeworld. The council will declare me a traitor to all Calorith." "You already left." Yes. But this makes it permanent. Final. Those amber eyes met Jiho's. "I want to be certain this is worth it." Jiho thought about Earth, about her brother's kids who would grow up in whatever universe this decision created, about all the human colonies scattered across space, trying to make lives for themselves in a galaxy that didn't want them. "Nothing's certain," she said. "But sitting quiet while they erase us? That's not living. That's just waiting to die." Vex's ridges cycled through half a dozen colors before settling on a deep, warm gold. "You are either very brave or very stupid. Why not both?" Vex's laugh was a musical sound, like chimes. She pressed the button. The upload began. Somewhere, alarms were definitely going off. Jiho could hear boots in the corridor more than 3 sets now. She grabbed the pulse rifle again. "How long?" 2 minutes 40 seconds. "Great. Love that for us." The door exploded inward. Jiho fired blind, covering her eyes from the flash. When she looked again, there were 6 soldiers in the doorway Vrexian. Thaxron, and what looked like a Zethian in full combat gear, which was unusual because Zethians usually avoided violence. "Stand down." The lead Thaxron growled in standard galactic. "You are interfering with council enforcement protocols." "Yeah, that's kind of the point," Jiho said. 2 minutes, Vexa said quietly. The Thaxron raised his weapon. Jiho's finger tightened on the trigger. This was it. They were going to die in a supply station communications. Room over a thumb drive and a principal dot then the station. Shook dot not the gentle vibration of docking ships or the rumble of engines. This was an impact, hard enough to throw everyone off balance. The lights flickered again. What the hell was that? Jiho demanded. Vexa checked the console, her eyes widening. A human fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. 12 ships, including 3 military escorts. "We don't have 12 ships anywhere near here. They came from Earth." Captain Kim's evacuation call reached the homeworld. Vex's voice held something like wonder. "Your species heard you were under threat, and they came." The Thaxron soldiers exchanged glances. One of them touched his cum, listened, then lowered his weapon. "The Thaxron command ship is withdrawing. The Council did not authorize military engagement with the human homeworld fleet." 1 minute 30 seconds. Vexa said. They waited. Jiho's heart was doing something complicated in her chest, part relief, part terror, part something else she didn't want to examine too closely. The soldiers stayed in the doorway, but didn't advance. They'd enforce council law, but apparently not if it meant starting an actual war. When the upload finished, Vexa pulled the crystal and slipped it into her own pocket. It is done. The codes are now in the station's database, broadcasting on all channels. Every human ship in range will receive them within the hour. Then we're leaving, Jiho said. She kept the rifle trained on the soldiers as they backed toward the service exit. To their credit, the soldiers let them go. They ran. The cargo hauler was exactly where they'd left it, which Jiho considered a minor miracle. They sealed the hatch, and Vexa launched them away from the station with enough acceleration that Jiho's vision grayed at the edges. "You're insane," she gasped. "You inspire insanity." They cleared the station's defense perimeter just as the first human ships began broadcasting on open channels. Not military codes or encrypted tactical data, just open messages, repeating in every known language. "The Halcyon gates are open. The routes are free. Come and go as you please." Simple, defiant, very human. Jiho watched the sensors as more ships appeared, human cargo vessels, colonial transports, even a couple of battered mining rigs that someone had retrofitted with hyperspace drives. Within minutes, the first ships were entering the Halcyon routes. Using Vex's codes, the council couldn't stop them all. "We did it," Jiho said. Vex's ridges were the brightest gold Jiho had ever seen. "We did." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the stars. Then Vexa said, "Where do we go now?" "Good question." The station wasn't safe. The council would investigate, and both of them were probably at the top of several wanted lists. Earth was an option, but Vexa couldn't exactly walk around openly as the Kelrath who'd betrayed the council. "There's a colony," Jiho said slowly, "out past the Orion sector. New Sol. My brother moved there 5 years ago. It's small, mostly farmers and engineers. They're always looking for people who can fix things." "You are suggesting we hide on a farm plant. I'm suggesting we go somewhere the council won't look for us while we figure out our next move." Jiho turned to face her. "Unless you've got somewhere better in mind?" Vex's ridges cycled through several colors. "I have nowhere. The council will have seized my property, informed my family I am a traitor. In the eyes of my species, I no longer exist." "That's not true." "It is precisely true." "No," Jiho said firmly. "You exist right here, in this shitty cargo hauler, with me. And if your people can't see what you did was brave and right, then they're idiots." Vexa stared at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Your species is very strange." "Yeah, we get that a lot. You offer shelter to someone who has made you a target. You risk war for principles. You name your colonies after cities that no longer exist on your homeworld." Vex's voice softened. "You are illogical and beautiful and terrifying." Jiho felt her face heating. "Are you? Is that a Kelrath thing? The compliment-insult combination?" "It is a Vexa thing." Those amber eyes held hers. "I am not skilled at this. My species does not. We do not form attachments easily. But you make me want to try." Oh no." Jiho's brain was short-circuiting because apparently nearly dying together and committing galaxy-wide data theft was some kind of bonding experience. And Vexa was looking at her like she was something precious and breakable. And Jiho had never been good at this kind of thing, even with humans. "Let alone, I don't know how this works," Jiho said. The interspecies thing? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Neither do I." Vex's ridges flickered to a soft rose color. "Perhaps we learn together?" "That's really cheesy." "You know that's cheesy, right? I learned it from your human romantic films. They are very educational. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the fact that they were now fugitives fleeing council justice, Jiho laughed. Okay, yeah, we can try. But first we need to not die. So maybe focus on flying? I can do both. She couldn't, actually. Vexa nearly clipped an asteroid while looking at Jiho instead of the nav display, and Jiho had to grab the controls and correct their course. But it was endearing in a way that made Jiho's chest feel warm and too full. They set course for New Seoul. The journey took 6 days in hyperspace, then another 2 in normal space as they approached the colony. Jiho spent most of it teaching Vexa how to make proper coffee. The Calrith version was apparently a thick syrup that tasted like burnt rubber. And Vexa spent it explaining the intricacies of Calrith social structures, which were so complicated Jiho's head hurt. Wait, so you have 17 different pronouns based on the relationship between speaker and listener? 18, actually. You keep forgetting the pronoun for addressing someone you are romantically interested in, but have not yet declared intentions to. That's insane. English has dozens of words for precipitation. This is equally insane. Fair point. They also talked about what came next. The council wouldn't let this go. They'd lost their monopoly on the most valuable trade routes in known space. And worse, they'd been humiliated by a species they'd tried to silence. There would be retaliation, sanctions, maybe even military action. They will make an example of someone, Vexa said. They always do. A show trial, public punishment. They need to demonstrate that defiance has consequences. Let them try, Jiho said. We've got the routes now. We've got access. And humans? We're really good at making noise when people try to shut us up. You are also very good at underestimating threats. Maybe, but we're also really good surviving them. New Seoul was beautiful in a rough-hewn way, a planet of forests and mountains, with small settlements scattered across the continents. Minho had called it Korea, but with 3 moons and better internet, which was pretty accurate. They landed at the main spaceport, which was really just a cleared field with landing pads and a small terminal building. Jiho's brother Hyan was waiting, leaning against a beaten transport truck. He grinned when he saw her. So, I hear you started an intergalactic incident. It wasn't on purpose. It's never on purpose with you. Hyan's eyes shifted to Vexa, who was hanging back uncertainly. You must be the Calrith defector everyone's talking about. I'm Hyan. Welcome to our little corner of nowhere. Vexa's ridges flickered nervous violet. I am Vexa. I apologize for bringing trouble to your world. Are you kidding? You're a legend. Half the colony wants to buy you a drink. Hyan jerked his thumb at the truck. Come on. You both look like you haven't slept in a week. The farmhouse was small but comfortable, solar panels on the roof. A vegetable garden out back. The kind of place that felt lived in and loved. Hyan's wife Soyen greeted them with soup and bread and didn't ask questions, which Jiho appreciated. That night, Jiho and Vexa sat on the porch watching the 3 moons rise. The air smelled like pine and growing things. This is very different from council space, Vexa said quietly. Yeah, we're kind of rough around the edges. No, not rough, just honest. Vex's ridges were that warm gold again. In council space, everyone performs. There are protocols for everything, how to speak, how to stand, what to reveal, and what to hide. Here, people just are. Is that good or bad? It is overwhelming, and wonderful, and terrifying. Jiho understood. She'd felt the same way when she first left Earth. The vastness of space, the alienness of everything, the sense that she was constantly one mistake away from catastrophe. But you adapted. You found people you trusted. You built a life in the cracks between catastrophes. You can stay here as long as you need, Jiho said. Hyan's already talking about how you can help optimize their irrigation systems. Apparently your species is really good with water management. We evolved on a desert world. Water is sacred to us. Vexa paused. But I do not want to stay here forever. I wanted to keep fighting. The Council will not stop with Earth. They will target other species, other worlds. Someone must oppose them. You want to start a revolution. I want to finish what we started. Jiho looked at her, really looked. Vex's crystalline ridges caught the moonlight, fracturing it into colors that shouldn't exist. Those amber eyes held determination and fear and hope all at once. She was beautiful and alien and more human than half the people Jiho had served with. Then I'm in, Jiho said. You do not have to. I'm in, Jiho repeated. You think I'm gonna let you have all the fun? Besides, someone needs to keep you from flying into asteroids. That happened one time. It was 3 times. Vex's laugh was that musical chime sound again. Then she reached out, hesitant, and took Jiho's hand. Her skin was warm and slightly textured, like very fine sandpaper. Her ridges flared bright rose. I am still learning, Vexa said softly, how to be close to someone. My species does not touch casually. This is significant. Jiho squeezed her hand gently. Then I'm honored. They sat like that for a long time, watching the moons and listening to the night sounds of an alien world that was becoming home. Somewhere out in the galaxy, the Council was regrouping, planning their response. Somewhere, the first human ships were charting new routes through the Halcyon gates, spreading messages of defiance and freedom. Somewhere, the careful order of galactic civilization was beginning to crack. But here, on this porch, in this moment, there was just Jiho and Vesa and the quiet promise of tomorrow. 3 months later, messages started arriving. Not official Council transmissions or military communiques, just personal messages sent on civilian channels. They came from Zethian merchants who'd used the free trade routes to expand their businesses. From Brexian scholars who'd accessed human databases and found new research they'd never seen. From a dozen species who'd been quietly chafing under Council restrictions, and now saw a possibility of something different. The messages all said variations of the same thing. Thank you. What can we do to help? Jiho and Vesa spent their days working on the colony, helping expand the settlement, fixing things that broke. But they spent their nights coordinating with the growing network of allies across the galaxy. It started small, sharing information, coordinating safe routes for refugees fleeing Council retaliation, helping species connect directly without Council intermediaries. Then it grew. 6 months in, they had a name, the Open Routes Coalition. 10 months in, they had 3 former Council species officially requesting membership. A year in, the Council called an emergency session to address the human question and found themselves facing a unified block of opposition from species that had never cooperated before. The Council tried to silence Earth, but Earth's answer hadn't been violence or threats. It had been an open hand, an invitation, a simple message, come and go as you please. And the galaxy answered. Jiho stood in the farmhouse kitchen, watching Vexa teach Hyan's daughter Minji the basics of Calorith mathematics, while Soin rolled her eyes at both of them. Outside, ships came and went from the expanded spaceport traders. Refugees, diplomats, all coming to New Seoul because it had become an unofficial neutral ground for the coalition. Her cum chirped. Captain Kim. Jiho, we've got a situation. 3 Council ambassadors are requesting a meeting. They say they want to negotiate terms. Terms for what? For recognizing the coalition as a legitimate political entity. For opening official dialogue about the Halcyon routes and trade reforms. Kim paused. Jiho, I think we're winning. Jiho looked at Vexa, who glanced up at the tone in her voice, those amber eyes questioning. Jiho smiled. "Tell them we'll talk," she said. "But on our terms. And Captain? Make sure they know the routes stay open. That's non-negotiable." "Copy that." Jiho ended the call. Vexa crossed the room, her ridges the warm gold that meant contentment. Good news? Complicated news. The council wants to talk. That is good news. They only negotiate when they cannot win. Jiho pulled her close, and Vexa leaned into her. A year ago, such a gesture would have been unthinkable for a Kellerth, but Vexa was learning to be someone new. They both were. "You know this isn't over," Jiho said. "The council won't give up easily. There will be more fights, more complications. I know." Vex's ridges flickered through several colors. "But we have something they do not." "What's that?" "Each other. And hope. And the knowledge that silence is only permanent if you let it be." Vexa smiled, and it was radiant. "Besides, I am dating a human. You people specialize in impossible victories. That's fair. Outside, ships cross the sky human, Kellerth, Zithian, Vrexian, 100 species mixing freely for the first time in generations. The Council had tried to silence Earth, tried to contain humanity's chaotic expansion into the ordered galaxy. But Earth's answer had echoed across space, had resonated in the hearts of every species that had ever chafed under restrictions. And that echo was growing into a roar dot in the kitchen of a farmhouse on a colony world. Two women held each other and watched the ships fly free and knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The galaxy would never be quiet again.